Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and as always, welcome back to yet another Mortal Kombat History of episode, with of course but another installment in my Across the Multiverse series. A deep dive lore retrospective where we talk about your favourite beloved characters of MK, tackling them outside the main canon of games, and seeing how their other existing counterparts fare beyond the mainline series. So we will be talking on movies, TV shows, and spin-off games, chronicling how the character has evolved, shaped, and grown from media to media, and from saga to saga. With that in mind, due to some fan demand on your part, which I will say is honestly the best way of suggesting who I should tackle next, today we'll be focusing on the champion of Mortal Kombat and current keeper of the Hourglass, Liu Kang. Now, Liu Kang himself is a pivotal figure to the series, having been the main character for the original trilogy of games. However, with that in mind, dear lord, has this character had an up and down path throughout the franchise. Do not be fooled by his current status and role as Keeper of the Hourglass, because he has been both hero and villain in different eras of the series, something that's largely reflected and influenced a lot of the non-canon spin-off material. So today, we'll be taking a deep dive lore retrospective through time, understanding the different variants of this character, and simply how he has changed from installment to installment. But before we do get the ball rolling here, quick reminder once more that I'd strongly recommend checking out this previous older video touching on the history of Liu Kang, as it serves as a baseline that this one branches off of. It'll help let this video make a lot more sense. And as always, if you do like what we do here and wish to see more, please don't forget to subscribe as well as tick that bell, because whilst it's a really small thing, it goes a phenomenally long way in supporting the channel. Anyway, let's dive right into things. Now to begin touching on all of these different iterations and renditions of Liu Kang, let's first off begin with the spin-off games of the series, starting with the fan-beloved Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. Now I know for some of you this may come across as a bit of a surprise, as it all does take place during MK2, but the game in itself is an extremely soft retelling of the game, being completely absent of a tournament. Thus, we are given a very expansive spin-off that retells the events of this game in an entirely different perspective. Now, keep in mind that a lot of this is player influenced depending on the preference of Kung Lao or Liu Kang, but the events of the game would still continue to pan out largely in the same manner, starting at the tail end of Mortal Kombat 1, where a massive brawl and war would ensue during the climax of the tournament, pitting the very best of Earthrealm against that of Outworld. And during this slaughter, Liu Kang can be seen leading the charge against the sorcerer Shang Tsung, beating his guards and going toe-to-toe against the former champion. The fight is extremely back and forth, but at one point, Shang would actually overpower him, causing the intervention of Kung Lao, giving Liu the breathing space he needs in order to defeat the former champion. Out of desperation, Shang here would actually summon the likes of Goro in order to fend off these overwhelming odds, allowing them all to escape as the island began to crumble. Caught in the debris, Liu and his Shaolin brother are forced to fight against the clock in order to make it off the island, but by doing so, they're able to return back to the Wuxi Academy, and Liu himself would receive a coronation at the Wuxi Academy, finally dubbed as champion of Mortal Kombat. Yet such a moment of peace would only last so long, because much like the original canon, Outworld would lay siege to the Wuxi Academy, laying devastation in their wake and even kidnapping the likes of Sonya. With the situation dire, the Shaolin knew that they would have to travel to the world of Outworld in order to stop Shao Kahn's assault. So moving forward, they would travel to these wastelands in order to save their home. And during this pursuit, they would in fact come across the likes of Princess Kitana, whom at first would seem like an adversary, until they learned that she was under the control of the Emperor. It was only possible to break her free of his snare by killing her friend Jade, freeing her mind. Whilst heartbroken, they would find a powerful ally in the princess, and their hunt across Outworld would not just stop here, as it would pit them against the likes of Melina, Reptile, and a very powerful revitalized Shang Tsung, one who would easily defeat the duo, but spare them from death, believing them to be unworthy of his time. Under the direction of Raiden, they would go on to destroy his soul tombs as well as Baraka, believing that they were slowly crippling the sorcerer. But there was more at play than what they had realized. As the pair delved deeper into Outworld, they would encounter Kitana once more and learn of Goro. Thus, with the threat he presented, the two would enter the wastelands to track him down, encountering the likes of Sub-Zero. And at first, they do actually mistake each other for the enemy, with Lao having nearly killed the Cryomancer. It's only because of Liu Kang's interference for which the Cryomancer survives, revealing that this shouldn't be possible, as Sub-Zero died in the very first tournament. And he is right, as it is revealed here that this Sub-Zero is the original's younger brother, with both in pursuit of Goro. With them both heading down the same path, Kwai would actually assist them across the Sea of Blood, taking them where they needed to be, before he's then unfortunately sidelined by Scorpion. Even so, the two would go on to fight the Shogun Prince and destroy him, but not before the actor can deliver the final finishing blow. Now though is where the plot begins to thicken, because they do come to the realization of Shang's interference in their crusade, how he's been posing as each of them in order to pit the Shaolin brothers against one another, even coming to the realization that the Raiden we've met since the start of the game may not be who he claims to be. Now, after briefly reuniting with Sub-Zero and defeating Scorpion, the two would reach the climax of the game, learning that their Raiden wasn't their Raiden, and how they had been just but mere puppets to that of the Sorcerer. Even so, the end was nigh, so Liu Kang and Kung Lao would enter the Emperor's Colosseum, participating in an absolutely brutal gauntlet, battling a revived Shang Tsung, the Tiger champion of the Shogun, Kintaro, and then finally the Emperor himself, Shao Kahn. It's a brutal and tough fight, but the two are able to squeeze out the win, beating the Conqueror and leaving him as nothing more than dust and echoes. The end of Shao would signal a number of different changes to this universe, with the first being Outworld falling into the hands of Kitana, where the two would then share a very soft implied romance between them. And then they would be able to lay their ancestors to rest, giving them a peaceful end after generations of turmoil. And with Shaolin monks having never gotten a sequel, this marks a true and definitive end to this timeline and era. With Shaolin monks out the way, this takes us onto another spin-off game that's also partially a mainline installment, Mortal Kombat 8, aka Mortal Kombat vs DC Universe. And this game's presence would begin in the aftermath of MK3, where the Emperor of Outworld is defeated and crippled from his detachment with Edenia. With his loss, Raiden would attempt to erase the Barbarian, but entangle him with a portal, latching him onto a boom tube on another side of reality. By both portals being threaded together, it would serve as a gateway which fused both worlds together, slowly having them merge and collide with one another. Now Liu features extremely early on in the story mode of the game, seeking to gain some reprieve and meditate in peace. But it's here where he would be sneak attacked by Kitana, but it's all done in a very flirtatious and romantic jest. With jokes aside, there is purpose for why she's turned up here, as she reveals to the Shaolin that members of Edenia have mysteriously began disappearing, eerily similar to what's been going on with the White Lotus Society. Believing that the Lin Kuei or Black Dragons could be the main culprits behind this, the champion of Mortal Kombat would seek them out for answers, with such a confrontation sparking a battle with Kuai Liang. Yet, even with the ninja catching him by surprise, Liu Kang is able to swiftly defeat him, learning from the Cryomancer that the Lin Kuei's numbers have also been dwindling too. So an alliance would form between the two, but before they could deduce what was going on and learn more, they would be attacked by the Hell Spectre Scorpion. Seeing this as the perfect opportunity to kill his blood rival. Protecting Kuai, Liu would go on to fight the Spectre and defeat him, but before he himself can get some answers, he would then suddenly disappear in a flash, being replaced by the Crimson Speedster of the same name. Believing this to be a trick or some sort of sorcery by Shang Tsung, he would go on to battle and defeat the Flash, only realizing that something was truly wrong when he was unconscious, as typically Shang Tsung would revert back to his normal form. By analyzing his aura, Liu was able to decipher his foreign nature, but not truly where he came from. So seeking guidance, he would take the unconscious body of the Flash to the Wuxi Academy. But by his return, more people had disappeared, with the only culprit he could find being Shang Tsung. Believing him to be the perpetrator, Liu Kang would immediately spring into action, beating the scum unconscious. But at least now on his home turf, Liu would be able to scan the speedster's chi, only to find something so much worse. The dark magic that now poisoned both worlds, rage. By making contact with the Flash, Liu had been transported to another world, Gotham City, being pitted against the Dark Knight Batman, having mistaken the Caped Crusader for Shang Tsung. As he was blinded by the poisonous infliction, the untempered and unfocused Shaolin would lose to Batman. So from here, Liu Kang would be taken to the watchtower in the sky, as he needed to be interrogated for answers, only to then be rescued by Raiden, so the answers would have to wait. After some time passes and Liu is able to recover, he is able to meet up with Sonya Blade and Jackson Briggs, with everyone under the guise and belief that they were suffering from otherworldly invaders once more, with the merging of worlds once again on the horizon. Due to the dire nature of things, Liu Kang and the Earthrealm Defenders would go on to make a very shaky alliance with what remained of Outworld and the Netherrealm, being reunited with Kitana, who had seen the true face of madness. But this was all orchestrated by a being known as Dark Khan. By learning more of their terraformed worlds, they were under the belief that the people they were fighting were in fact Dark Khan's generals. So to get the edge over their enemies here, they would be paired with their arch nemesis in order to tap into the rage. So Liu Kang would be paired with Shang Tsung moving forward, traveling to the Fortress of Solitude and doing battle with Superman and Green Lantern, with the two being bested. But irritated by the mere presence of Shang Tsung, Liu would once again be consumed by the rage, battling the Sorcerer, but this time ultimately losing to him, being spared by Shang only due to the fact that he had not outlived his usefulness. This would then take us to the finale of the game. Here, Liu Kang would make his final stand alongside his allies, battling the Justice League as they are all inflicted by rage. Here, he can be seen fighting Green Lantern, seemingly defeating Hal Jordan. Now, as the bloodshed settles down, he's once again able to regain his mind, shaking off the rage, but seeing that his master has also been inflicted by it, stepping in to protect Shang Tsung, believing him to be a traitor. Liu Kang is beaten by his master, but it takes this very heartbreaking moment in order to break Dark Khan's possession, allowing Raiden to regain his senses and go on to confront Dark Khan by either Superman or Raiden's hand, depending on player's choice. Both worlds would be separated once more, and a sense of harmony would be ushered in. And with MK vs DC being the one and only installment in this timeline, that is all we kind of know of this iteration of the character. But it is worth mentioning that in his MK vs DC ending, that once Liu Kang returns back to the mortal plane, after Raiden has studied the Rock of Eternity, he wishes for this world to have an equivalent to that of Captain Marvel, with the Shaolin being the perfect champion for it. So now, by Liu Kang shouting Mortal Kombat, he would wield the godly power of the Elder God Pantheon, fighting for his home and destroying the forces of the unknown. Now with the spin-off games wrapped up and covered, this brings us onto the fan-beloved 1995 movie. In this installment, Liu Kang does undergo some pretty substantial changes in terms of lore and origin here, being quite a far deviation of the character, as he is a former pupil of the White Lotus Society, having become an out-of-practice monk who left out of fear of his own destiny. While some elements still do remain the same, such as the orphan background, this incarnation of Liu had it so Liu had a younger brother by the name of Chan, someone who would burden and shoulder his responsibilities once he left, a role that would ultimately lead to his own demise by the hand of Shang Tsung. Along with this, it doesn't seem like he was actually trained by Raiden directly, because whilst Raiden recognizes and does acknowledge his skill, he is pretty vocal about his disappointment in his departure. Even so, with the death of their champion, Liu would be the next best option for the society, and plagued by a desire to seek his brother's killer, Liu would enter. From here, Liu would travel to Hong Kong in order to enter the tournament, but not before dropping off Johnny Cage's luggage. However, even on the ship, he isn't safe, as after meeting Sonya and getting more acquainted with Johnny Cage, the trio would be confronted by Shang Tsung and his henchmen, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, with both of the ninjas ready to attack until Raiden interferes. After their escape, Raiden would tell Liu Kang that whilst he feels ready for this tournament, he's still not yet ready to defeat his brother's killer. and this is seen on the island, as once its festivities are celebrated, the trio would immediately set off on their own personal vendettas. And with the threats they pose to the tournament, it's not like their presence doesn't go unnoticed, as they battle a wave of soldiers until Raiden arrives, forcing off the henchmen once more. With the night passing, this would finally take us onto the tournament itself, with Liu Kang fighting a very skilled yet unnamed monk, defeating him in round 1, to which the host would then lay claim to his soul. Liu Kang's first glimpse at his supernatural abilities. Coming into round 2, he would actually go on to battle the Edenian princess and daughter of the Emperor, Kitana. But their fight seems to be anything but a real confrontation here. Defiant against the Emperor herself, she would more or less forfeit this fight, but bestow words of wisdom upon him that in his next battle, he would need to utilize the element which gave life, puzzling the Shaolin, but allowing him to get further in the tournament. And these words would really come into play against his next adversary, Sub-Zero. During this fight, Liu gets a very strong head start in the battle, actually putting the Cryomancer on the back foot. That is until he casts himself in an elemental ice dome. And with no way in nor out, Liu Kang's chances to win does begin to dwindle. That is until he remembers Kitana's words, tossing a bucket of water at him and freezing him in the very same ice he had cast. Now Liu Kang isn't the only person on Earthrealm's side at this point in time to find success in the tournament, as Sonya Blade and Johnny would reach the 4th round. But at this point, the gloves are off, and the Shogun Prince Goro is unleashed, killing Art Lee, leading him to then be defeated by Johnny Cage. With the sorcerer desperate, Shang would actually resort to kidnapping Sonya, taking her to Outworld in the hopes of making her concede, therefore making Outworld the victor. Such cowardly acts though would not go unpunished, as Liu Kang and Johnny Cage would follow their trail, defeating the likes of Reptile in the process, leading to Liu finally getting his confrontation against his brother's killer. Here, Liu is forced to fight an undead army of the Damned, and does finally gain retribution against the former champion, unleashing the thousands of souls sealed away in his being, and sharing a very brief but bittersweet moment with Chan, gaining a sense of closure before the two finally part ways. With Earthrealm's victory, Liu Kang and his allies would return back home, celebrating it alongside Kitana, only for them to be interrupted by the arrival of the Emperor. Which now takes us onto the movie sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Understandably displeased by the failure of Shang Tsung, Shao would instead take a much more direct approach, leading a siege on the academy with very foreboding words of darker days to come, saying that there would be a 6-day countdown to which he would then destroy Earthrealm. And the threat he poses is pretty monumentous, as he's able to manhandle Raiden and even kills Johnny Cage. So wounded and maimed from this assault, they would all be forced to retreat in order to gain their senses, with Liu understandably frustrated as to how this is all possible, because he did win the last tournament. Such an invasion on paper would be impossible, and he wasn't wrong, because there was far more at play than what they had understood, believing that at the time, Sindel's resurrection is what allowed them to bypass those rules. With the clock counting down, they would immediately begin their hunt for Sindel, believing that by uniting the Queen and the Princess together, it could be the key to hopefully break this mind control that the Khan has over her. But as they delve deeper into Outworld, they would be attacked by Shao's forces in the form of the Cyberlinkway unit, Smoke. With the assistance of Sub-Zero, the cyborg is destroyed, allowing them to regain their composure, with the Shaolin a bit puzzled as to how another Sub-Zero could be here. And of course, this is Kuai Liang. Having learned the significance of Kitana in this situation, he had actually come to also help the princess, but did draw the attention of the Hell Spectre Scorpion. And this new Sub-Zero would nearly be killed, until Liu Kang interfered and saved his life. By doing so though, he'd let his guard down, allowing the princess to be taken. Thus, left alone and all by himself, Liu would seek guidance from the ancient shaman Nightwolf, who tells Liu that the only way he can defeat the Emperor is by acquiring his animality, something that would allow him to go toe-to-toe with him. But in order to achieve such a goal, he would have to pass 3 tests: courage, temptation, and a third which is still undisclosed to this very day. And whilst Liu is able to achieve 2, the Shaolin admits that he doesn't feel ready for the third, and so leaves early with Jade by his side, meeting Sonya and Jax at the Temple of the Elder Gods. And it's here where he would actually meet a mortal Raiden, having sacrificed his divinity in order to battle the Khan on even footing. With the Khan's forces drawing closer, they would teleport to Outworld, with Liu Kang setting off for the Royal Palace, saving the princess and defeating the likes of both Baraka and Shiva. Once he returns back to the Earthrealmers, they would attempt to perform an exorcism on the Empress, only to learn that all of their efforts were in vain, because behind the scenes, Jade had been playing them as a double agent, stringing them along and running down the timer. With the dire straits of the situation, Raiden reveals the truth of his birthright, and how his father is in fact the Elder God Shinnok, making Shao his brother. Here, they are able to deduce the foul play at hand, and that it must be from the higher pantheon. And running out of options, they are ultimately forced to lead an upfront confrontation against the Emperor, with even Liu uncertain of his victory here. But it is the death of Raiden here to give Liu Kang the confidence he needs to battle Shao on one-on-one combat. And it's pretty brutal, as Shao is easily able to pick away at those insecurities and weaknesses, overpowering the Shaolin until he does tap into his animality. And so begins a battle between these two beasts, with Liu Kang's dragon battling Shao's Hydra. And whilst this battle ends in a stalemate of sorts, it takes enough out of the Khan to strip him of his invulnerability. And with the arrival of the Elder Gods and neutralization of Shinnok, the final battle would commence with Liu fighting Shao to the death. A battle which the Emperor would finally lose. With Shao's invasion having failed, the realms are restored to their natural states like nothing had ever happened. And with Liu finally relieved of his burden of being Mortal Kombat champion, it does look like he wished to pursue a romantic relationship with Kitana, marking a true, conclusive end to this iteration of Liu Kang. Yet, this wouldn't be the last time we are graced the Shaolin on the big screen, as he would return in Mortal Kombat 2021, albeit in a very minor side role, and this version of Liu Kang would also be quite different in that regard, because we learned from the movie that he was found in the gutter by Bo Rai Cho, and then taken in and raised within the White Lotus Society. But the most interesting point of this version of Liu Kang is honestly his deviations, being not dubbed at any point in time the Chosen One, and in fact it's actually framed here that Lao is supposed to be his superior, dubbed as Champion of the White Lotus. The other certainties that we do know of this version is that he has unlocked his Arcana, which is this universe's equivalent to fighting game magic, and it does look like he maintains a close brotherhood with Kung Lao, taking us up to the events of the film. And with the 2021 movie serving as a sort of prequel to the actual tournament, with it on the horizon and Outworld actively picking off fighters, it becomes Liu Kang's job to reach out and shepherd those fighters to Raiden's temple, to give them a protective home for the oncoming battle, which in turn introduces him to the likes of Sonya, Kano, and Cole. Under their protection, Liu Kang and Kung Lao would serve as tutors of sorts, being tasked with the mission of unlocking each champion's arcana. But such a task would not be quite so simple. During this time period, Outworld would ferociously start pushing harder and harder against Earthrealm, even going so far as to infiltrate their temple, with Sub-Zero nearly killing Liu Kang if Lao had not interfered. It would only be by Raiden casting a magical ward, to which the Earthrealmers would then be protected, given a bit more time to generate their arcana. But the scummy, treacherous nature of Kano causes that ward to very quickly crumble and decay. And with their siege underway, Liu would be pitted against the likes of Kabal, going back and forth with the speedster. And tragically for Liu, with him being occupied with battling Kabal, this would have it so Lao would fall to the hands of Shang Tsung. In order to protect his champions, Raiden would teleport them all to the void, giving the Earthrealmers time to form a plan. Now Liu here would mourn the loss of his fallen brother, and take his red sash as a headband. With Liu seeking a rematch, he would be teleported in to fight the likes of Kabal, absolutely cooking the speedster by summoning a fire dragon. So with each of his teammates taking down a member of Outworld, he would once again set off to find other future Earthrealm champions. Thus, the arrival of the tournament seems far less bleak from when the movie started. And yet, the battle was still far from over. Only time will tell for what could become of this version of the Shaolin. Now, with the movies having been covered, this would take us onto Mortal Kombat's legacy. And when it comes to different takes and different versions of Liu Kang, this is easily, by far, the most different of all of them here, as the former Shaolin serves as a direct antagonist this time around. Now, this version of Liu Kang is one that has really lost his way, because whilst on record he did become the White Lotus champion, and did defeat and apparently kill Shang Tsung, Liu would then decide to leave that life behind him and the teachings of the White Lotus Society, all to pursue a life with a woman by the name of Marley. And at one point, it did seem like the two were going to be engaged. But of course, tragedy would strike at the family diner they own, with Marley dying during the robbery. Her end would actually send Liu down a very dark spiraling path, one filled with violence, vengeance, and alcoholism, being scrutinized by Lao for taking such petty vengeance, and then even denied a return to the White Lotus Society. So stripped of both life and purpose, Liu would lead a very personal crusade against the underworld, killing criminals and crime bosses. But one day he would be approached by a figure he'd never thought he'd see again, a revived Shang Tsung. Seeking fighters, he would actually offer him to join his side. Having known of what became of Marley, the sorcerer would prey away on that weakness. How it was humanity who robbed him of his happiness, and prey on that very bitterness that had kept Liu Kang alive for so long. And up to a certain extent, the sorcerer was not wrong. So Liu would enter the tournament against his former allies with a very bloody iron fist, quickly dismantling the likes of Johnny Cage, an utterly brutalizing Striker. It is only until the arrival of Lao to which he stopped, but before any fight can conclude this rivalry, we are left on an unbelievably dire cliffhanger. The only thing I can say for certain is that it's by far the most grim depiction of him. Now, shuffling onto the more animated side of things, we do have Mortal Kombat: The Journey Begins. This animated series would be an incredibly loose retelling of the events of the '95 movie, despite it also designed to be a direct tie-in. Now, Liu's time in the spin-off would begin on the ship to the island, meeting up with the likes of Sonya and Johnny Cage, much like the '95 movie. But where it changes and deviates here is that unlike the movie, here we do actually see them battling Scorpion and Sub-Zero, with Liu fighting the Cryomancer and the ninjas coming up short. The battle would only finally halt once Raiden arrives, protecting his guardians and forcing Shang Tsung's forces to retreat. And once again, this would take us to the island, where Liu Kang and his allies would be told the tales and stories of the other combatants, filling in who exactly they were being pitted against. Eventually, as the tournament begins, the Thunderer would be forced to take a step back and allow Mortal Kombat to commence, with Liu and his allies battling against a Tarkatan horde, led by Sub-Zero. As for what comes next and how this battle goes, we're not entirely sure, because it does end abruptly here. And you know, despite it being designed as a tie-in, it does pretty strongly deviate away from the source material, marking an end to this particular rendition. Now, our next animated series here would actually be Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm. And this particular installment is a very interesting hybridized continuity, taking place during the events of MK3, but implements certain ideas and events from the '95 movie. It's a mixed mesh of two continuities together, with the open freedom to kind of go off in its own direction here. So certain things occur like Liu Kang having frozen Sub-Zero. That's referenced to and a part of his interaction with Kuai Liang. But for the most part here, Liu Kang would kind of play an accompanying and supporting role in the series, as it would be focused on the Earthrealm Defenders as a whole, opposed to just having him in the main seat. So he's not thrust front and center, simply playing a hand in the more large-scale events, or a minor one if it is a personal story. And as a defender of Earthrealm, we would see this version of Liu go up against Outworld's Tarkatan Horde, Scorpion's Undead Legion, the bastardized Cyber Ling Hui, and so much more. So he's prevalent in pretty much every episode, yet features most prominently in its final episode, where Princess Kitana has set her gaze on Outworld's throne. With Shao Kahn's tyranny having gone on for far too long, the Empress believes that it's now her time to take it from him, something that Liu Kang does reluctantly agree to. Because over the time and course of this show, the romance has slowly but surely blossomed between the two. Yet if Kitana was to seize the throne, those ties would most certainly be severed. But knowing that it would be the greater good, Liu Kang would follow by her side, joining her in her battle and pursuit against the Khan. And they would put up a valiant effort, really taking the fight to him, until the numbers game is no longer in their favour. However, Kitana is no fool, causing a brawl to break out and allowing them to get away. So whilst these efforts were kind of in vain, the brighter outcome in sight of this is that Liu Kang and Kitana would end the series together, as it is a discontinued continuity. Now this takes us onto a last and final iteration of the character, and this version is actually one which does follow a little bit closer to the source material, at least in terms of background. The only real big anomalies here with Liu isn't so much his character, but the significance of his parents, as it looks like the fate the prophesied child's posed to Outworld forced the Emperor's hand to actively seek out Liu to kill him as an infant. Because of this, Liu's parents would sacrifice their lives in order to protect him, giving enough time for Raiden to intervene, then being raised in the Thunder God's eternal care, becoming a foster father of sorts. From this point, little was known of what became of him in between the time to the tournament, but I think we can all safely assume the more well-known aspects of the character, having been raised alongside Kung Lao and becoming the White Lotus champion, taking us onto our first title here, Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge. During this time period, it takes us to our typical first tournament era, where he's travelling on a boat to Shang Tsung's island, and is of course acquainted with Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade. Once at the tournament, they bear witness to its opening ceremony, and it's in very bloody fashion with the dismembering of Jackson Briggs. With the tone set, the tournament would finally commence, with the Shaolin teleported halfway across the island, and pitted against the likes of Princess Kitana. The fight is more of a dance between the two, with the Shaolin eventually getting the upper hand. However, instead of killing her, he pleads for her to concede, wishing to not spill the blood of a worthy champion. And while she most certainly sees his mercy as misplaced and foolish, it is something she agrees to, with Liu Kang saying it's hope that drives him through this tournament. Following her elimination, he would go on to find Sonya and Johnny Cage once more, seeking shelter as the day closed out. And here, the trio would encounter Scorpion, and nearly engage with him in Mortal Kombat until Johnny Cage intervened, looking to have a ceasefire so they could recover. So as both sides calm down, they are able to have a moment of relaxation, with many of the combatants having already fallen in its early stages. Its finals would be taking place very soon. Unfortunately though, during this tournament, there would be some actual outside interference by the Black Dragon clan, led by Kano, looking to eliminate these Earthrealm defenders. Yet with all of the weapons of modern day man, they would not be able to stop the trio, with Liu Kang dodging the bullets and crumbling anyone that stood in their way. With his destiny in sight, Liu Kang would reach the top and battle Outworld's champion, Goro, and it is a long and weary fight, and Liu has the advantage for the most part, but it's the sheer relentless endurance of Goro that keeps him up to pace with the Shaolin, nearly killing him by pulling him apart, until Scorpion would intervene, striking and killing the champion from behind, therefore becoming Outworld's new champion. But with little to no interest in the tournament, a Spectre would concede, forfeiting the tournament to Liu Kang and saving the realm of Outworld, but ultimately leaving Liu Kang quite devastated, as he really felt like he'd come up short and not fulfilled his own destiny. To which Raiden would agree, but reassure him that it was never his fate nor destiny to defeat Goro, but in fact that of the Emperor. So this now takes us onto Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms. Now Battle of the Realms doesn't take place much longer after the events of the prior movie, because following the defeat of the Sorcerer, Shao Kahn would begin his assault of Earthrealm, beginning with the Wu Shi Academy, leading a very aggressive upfront charge. But by doing so, this allows Liu and his allies to infiltrate their camp, offering them an opportunity to surrender before a brawl does indeed break out. And this disruption would catch the attention of the Emperor, with Liu Kang having a very brief skirmish with the general. However, the Juggernaut is not here to do battle, but instead offer a tournament, one that would conclude their bout for the very last time. Yet, in order for such a tournament to commence, it would have to take place on Outworld's home turf. Seeing their options dwindling, Raiden, with much reluctance, would accept this offer, and it's for a very good reason why. Because the bloodlust that radiates from Outworld's crowd is palpable. They yearn for the death of these outsiders, and it's seen from battle to battle. During this tournament, Liu Kang's first opponent would be Jade, and the Shaolin would gain a very swift victory against her, smashing through her staff. So round 1 is over pretty quick, giving Liu Kang some time to recover, but is notably worried about his father figure, as Raiden is now mortal, having sacrificed his godhood in order to enter this tournament, being susceptible to both pain and death. So this naturally does raise the concern of Liu Kang. Yet the former Elder God offers nothing but gratitude for his concern, and even a slight glimmer of excitement, for this is the first time he's ever had to live the life of a man. Such concern though would absolutely not be misplaced, because during the second round of battles, Earthrealm would take some heavy casualties in the death of Striker and Lao. And during this stage, Liu is finally able to go toe-to-toe with Shang, defeating the sorcerer and sparing him, but is left maimed from this fight, as Shang had inflicted his left arm with an ancient curse that would render it useless, crippling him in this tournament in a pretty drastic way. And the worst part is that under normal circumstances, Raiden would actually be able to purify it had he still been a god. This now brings us into the final stages of the tournament, where Raiden would fall and Liu Kang would battle the Emperor out of vengeance. And neither side holds back during this clash, with Liu Kang actually falling at first, until he's able to relieve himself of his curse, striking him with a flurry of blows that renders him to nothing more than a bloody mess. Thus, the age of Shao Kahn would finally be over, and so the rest of the realms. Because you see, in the background of this tournament, the fallen Elder God Shinnok had obtained all of the Kamidogus, utilizing their incredible power to ascend to the level of the One Being. Due to the severity of the threat this posed, the Elder God would reach out to the Mortal Kombat champion, believing that he could be the one that could vanquish the One Being, as it did seem like Raiden was right in his choice. By sacrificing the material being, they were able to use Liu Kang as a vessel for all of their grandiose power, ascending him to a level beyond that of the Elder Gods. By doing so, he could go toe-to-toe with the One Being, and defeat him with the assistance of his allies, tearing him apart piece by piece, before Liu finally absorbs his essence, restoring the realms back to their former being. Once this job is done, Liu Kang does return back to his mortal form, united with Kitana, and marking an end to this particular era and version of the character. Now, as a somewhat bonus mention here, whilst he isn't a part of the cast or entourage of characters, Liu Kang would make an ever so brief cameo in Mortal Kombat Snowblind, but not really as himself. Because within this desolate lost timeline envisioned and weaved by Kano, only remnant or mention of him being a statue that is built within the confines of a small village. Well, like that everyone, this has been it for the history of Liu Kang, and I do hope you have learnt more by doing so, as this one has been a doozy to make and cover, being a far bigger undertaking than I had expected, but one that I did want to do justice, as he's just such a significant character to the mythos. With Liu Kang having been thrust front and center for a very long time as the protagonist, it's very interesting to see how outside factors have actually impacted the character and changed each different interpretation of him, featuring as both ally and enemy not only in game, but also the expanded media and canon. From the Chosen One to the Fallen One, Liu Kang has gone through a lot of different changes and alterations since his inception, making him an ever-evolving character, but ones whose roots have always been based in the core of the mythos. So with that said, and everything I've mentioned here, what was your personal favourite depiction of the character? And who would you say was your Liu Kang? Please do comment down below, as I'd love to hear what you have to say, because to me, it's always gonna have to be that 95 version. It's a classic interpretation of the character, and that movie in itself is always gonna have a very special place in my heart. So with that said, quick reminder again that if you do have any suggestions for next week's episode, please put them down below. But for now everyone, as always, stay strong, stay well, and I'll catch you in the next one.